Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good and the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and we have a great show today, although it will be me alone. I have no guests, no big brain smart heads to steer me in the right direction. So I'm going to try to get in the Bufnagle groove here and see what we can provide for you. If the calendar works out right, this episode should drop on Tuesday of Holy Week, 5 days before Easter. If I did the math right, depending on how you count days. Sometimes counting days can be a difficult thing. So before I get there, I want to do a couple things. As you know, thank you to the listeners for being here. We do appreciate you and the time you give us. We realize there's a lot of options for your ears, and we appreciate you spending some of your ear time with us. If you could, feel free to reach out to us at bufnagle@bufnagle.com. You can find us on the interwebs. But what really helps us, little 5-star reviews. Those are great. Subscribe, awesome, and share the love, share the buff. Make sure your friends know that we are out here, because that's how we. You won't see a Bufnagle billboard down there in Times Square saying "Listen to the Buff." Our advertising budget is not there. Our advertising budget is you, and hopefully it is the goodwill we establish with you. And we would love to have you share our story with people that matter to you. This is Holy Week, so those of you, except people who don't go to church probably don't call it Holy Week, but that's okay. We can still talk about good things that we get out of this. In the Roman calendar, we are here at the end of, this is the end of Lent. We had Palm Sunday yesterday, where we read the Passion, and Easter Sunday, Good Friday is coming up, and Easter Sunday is then going to be it's coming up in less than a week, and that brings us to the Passion story. And passion, it's interesting because passion is a word that means literally suffering, and this is the passion is the suffering. So if you are the kind of person who is compassionate, then that means when people suffer, you suffer with them, and that is a good thing. Last Sunday was Passion Sunday, Palm Sunday, and we celebrated that. So the story of the Passion is an innocent man. Truth incarnate is subjected to all sorts of bad stuff, and then put on trial, found innocent but killed anyway. Go figure that one out. Hung up on a tree and put in a tomb. That's the story of the Passion, and there's all sorts of intricacies in there. We're not going to go into a lot of those things, but I'm going to talk about how some of those things. I'm going to recount the story a little bit, but from a perspective that's not focused necessarily on salvation and the Easter story, but one more about how the Passion story is the oldest story and the most common story, and it is a story that is everywhere around us even today. So Jesus is an innocent guy. He is truth incarnate. Powerful people don't like truth, all right, because truth exposes their corruption. So the leaders at the time there in Jerusalem, they conspire to they see a threat, and they conspire to take down the threat. The threat, of course, is to their power, because truth is always a threat to corruption, and we know that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So power and truth have trouble getting along. It's a difficult thing for them to do. So the religious leaders, they buy disloyalty from one of Jesus's 12 apostles, from Judas. They appeal to his sense of the good. They say, look, we'll give you this money if you turn him in. You can use that money. You can You can buy food for poor people. You can do all sorts of good things. We'll give you money. And Judas succumbs to that and turns in Truth himself, and they arrest Truth and put him on trial. And of course, like all corrupt, it's a banana republic, right? It's a disaster of a trial. Power always fears truth and other threats to its power. So the leaders conspire to gin up testimony. They have people come in and say why this guy should be guilty and should be run out of town on a rail or strung up on a tree. But their stories conflict because it's hard to get consistent testimony when there's nothing there that the guy did wrong. And finally, they land on a blasphemy charge because he said he was going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days. And we can go into why that is, what that means, and the symbolism there. But they get there, and they say, we got him now. We have all the evidence we need. What we really need, though, is a death penalty, and we don't have one of those, but Rome does. And since we are occupied territory, we'll take him to Pilate. We'll make Pilate kill him. So, of course, Pilate doesn't want any of this. Pilate is a low level. I mean, think of poor Pilate. All right, I'm not going to come out in defense of Pilate here at the end, but I want to recognize the situation he is in, and pray that you were never in this situation, because this very difficult thing for people to do is to stand up to justice when this kind of stuff is going against you. And Pilate fails miserably, of course. Pilate is the Roman governor there, and his job is to maintain Pax Romana, which is wonderful when it's peaceful. But if you are on the outside, it can be very harsh, as evidenced by what they do to the to criminals. So Pilate doesn't want any part of this. He wants power in Rome, but he knows he's got to do his time there in Israel. And he questions Jesus, and he says, I got nothing here. Why do you want him killed? I'm not seeing anything. But of course, the leaders that are corrupt, they rouse the rebel, as it's said, and they're starting a riot. And Pilate sees that his ability to maintain Pax Romana, and thus his position of power, and his opportunity to advance from this current position he has to maybe a cushier gig back in Rome somewhere is on the line here. So Pilate wants to free him. He can't come up with a way to do that. The mob, he can't quell the mob. The mob is out of control. And he says to them, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a choice. How about, he's giving them every opportunity to not do this, but people are people. And he says, there's this guy, this rebel who is in jail for murder, this Barabbas guy. And there's Jesus, who is truth incarnate. And to me, it is, these things are funny because they are so obviously consistent throughout time. This is how people behave. The Passion is a story about how people behave, regardless of what century it is. So they get asked the question, do you want Barabbas or do you want Jesus? And they say, give us Barabbas, take Jesus and string him up on a tree, because they have been coerced by the leaders. The people they've ginned up this outrage, and they've been told to ask for things that are obviously not in their best interest. The ruling class is what are they doing? They're encouraging the release of dangerous people into the society and the destruction of the author of the universe. So it's not a good decision, but they make it anyway. And eventually Pilate just says, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And he was like, it's not on me. And he does the thing. He says, I'm going to wash my hands, and it's not on me. And you know what, Pilate, it's on you, dude. He condemns innocence. He condemns truth. He tries to wash his hands, but of course that just puts more blood on his hands, right? And the issue is he's a coward because he won't do what is right. He will sacrifice an innocent man. He will sacrifice an innocent man to maintain the peace. And you can't do that. That's an evil, and you cannot do evil even if good, peace, will result. So He doesn't stand for justice, and we've talked about four cardinal virtues there, and there's a big one. Pilate, if you are a governor, justice is your middle name, and this is he kind of fails the test here. And what does he want? Right? He wants his power, and the way to maintain his power is to maintain peace. He tries to maintain peace at any cost, and what he does is he condemns an innocent man. So truth is killed, and powerful people retain their power, and that's the passion. There it is. But we know the rest of the story. I talked a little bit about this last year at Easter time, is that we now have a different perspective, and we say Easter changes everything. And the lesson, at least from the salvation point of view, the lesson is Easter, and that's a whole podcast in itself, not an episode. That's a whole thing to think about in itself. But this is interesting, is that truth has this funny, nasty habit of always coming back. And if Jesus is truth incarnate, he will come back. The truth will come out, they say, and truth cannot be kept silent. So this story of power versus truth versus corruption versus trying to get what you want in this world, that is a story that should be familiar to anyone that knows any bit of his history. Power always corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Corruption is the state of this world. Corruption is the state of this world. Now, this podcast is generally an all things good in pursuit of the adventure of life thing. This seems like a kind of a downer here. It is Holy Week, and the readings get kind of somber, but this is going to come out good on the other side. Okay, so just hang with me. Darkest before the dawn and all that. I was raised, I think, and I think a lot of us have been raised this way, in a culture that tends to think of civilization in progress. So we were taught, think about how you were taught history. If you started way back in prehistory, we talk about Stone Age, and we talk about people with very little technological ability. We may even mock their scientific expertise. We move from Stone Age to Bronze Age to Iron Age. We see advancements in writing and in mathematics and in other kinds of technology. Things in the past were not good, is what we were taught, but things now are better, right? And we even mentioned last week, whenever that was, a couple weeks ago, that when I was talking to Harry, that there are some really good things here. There are good things. We have vaccines, and we have airplanes, and we have air conditioning, and we have podcasts, and I think that's good, right? And we have aluminum cans, and we have interstate highways, and a lot of the things that we talk about here on this podcast of all things good. A lot of those things are good. These technological advances are good things, and we tend to think of the world as progressing. I think we said twice as good as yesterday and half as good as tomorrow. It's always this getting better and better and better thing. And we were taught this description of the world as this progress thing. And I'm not going to go into the politics of this, but it's easy to see how that can drive political thought. And I'm not going to argue that that's not true. This is look at the wonderful things we have now compared to just when you were a kid. And some things I will entertain the argument, some things aren't as good. But in general, this technological advance has been just mind-bogglingly awesome in general. And we've also been told things like the arc of history bends toward justice. And I don't really know who said that. And it's a wonderful statement. Whatever it means, it seems to mean that things get better from a justice point of view as time goes on. But you know what? That just ain't true. It's just not true. The history of the world is filled with this interesting contrast between things and people. We are filled with a world of increasing technological innovation, all the things that we discuss here in this podcast, but the nature of the world from a human point of view is fundamentally the same now as it was in the year 1400, as it was in the year 33 BC, or 3380, as it was in 4 BC, as it was in 750 BC, and all the way back, the nature of man doesn't change. And the nature of man is that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's a strange interjection. The issues and the stories that we see now are the same as this passion story. Man stays constant while things change. The passion story is familiar because we see it all the time. Power seeks to corrupt truth. Truth seeks to expose the corruption in power. So the tech moves on, the technology moves on, but the corruption of man stays the same. We're stuck the same. So we come to new problems and new issues, and we have AI bots now, and we have all sorts of wonderful vaccines, and we have airline travel, but when we move around, we see diseases change. I mean, so technology brings other new problems. These are new problems. No, they're not. They're all old problems. All the problems are old problems, and they all come from this fundamental issue that man is this fallen being here on this planet, and it's all about power and corruption. C.S. Lewis wrote that we are in enemy-occupied territory, and that Christianity is the story of how the rightful king has landed. You may say he has landed in disguise, and he is calling all of us to take part in a great campaign of sabotage. We live in a fallen world, and the tech is great and it makes things wonderful, but it doesn't change the nature of man. The problems are old. The solutions are old. The solutions are that we need to live the virtues. We need to be courageous. We need to be prudent. We need to practice justice, and we need to be temperate. These problems of that Pilate personified, and that the leaders in Jerusalem at the time of the Passion that they personified as well. These people they're all over history. Just think about the tyrants that you've heard of: Nebuchadnezzar and all the pharaohs, Alexander, all the Caesars, Genghis Khan, Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot, Idi Amin. All of these guys, they're the same guy. They're all identical guys. And even little local leaders that you get, governors or mayors or city clerks or the clerk at the DMV, or even the tyrannical homeowners association president that you may have where you live. These are all the same people, and they're fighting the same problem. And the problem is human desire for power, which comes from pride, which leads to corruption. And the only antidote to that is truth. Remember, this is not our home here on earth. We are in enemy-occupied territory. We are behind enemy lines. Our home is with God. The Passion exposes that truth is there, and truth will come out. Truth will win the day, but not here. This is not our home. This is not where we long for. So the Passion leads us to Easter. Easter brings the hope, and the hope is that truth will not be kept silent. So set your sights not here, but to Easter and what is beyond. Seek the good, be the good, and spread the good, and enjoy the adventure of life.